1. Don't just make a living, make a life that speaks long after you're gone. From your teenage years to retirement, don't just chase a paycheck, chase purpose. Your job might feed your body, but your calling feeds your soul. Ask yourself, when the money stops, will your impact still echo? Because what you build with your hands will fade, but what you build with your heart becomes legacy. 2. Your direction is more important than your speed. Don't let the world rush you. From 16 to 65, life is not a sprint, it's a series of intentional steps. Every decision isn't about how fast you get there, but whether you're headed the right way. Better to walk slow on the path of purpose than run fast into regret. 3. Every stage of life is preparation, treat it like training. What you're doing at 16 might not be where you end up at 65, but it's training. Life isn't wasted when you're learning, growing, falling, and rising again. Your trials teach you, your failures shape you, and your pain prepares you. Stay in the gym of life, and when the spotlight comes, you won't fold. 4. If you wait for confidence to act, you'll always be waiting. Move scared, but move. From teenager to elder, the fear never fully leaves, but neither does your opportunity to rise. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's doing it afraid. Don't wait until you feel ready. Take the shot when your knees are shaking. You might not feel prepared, but purpose doesn't need your comfort, only your commitment. 1. Don't just make a living, make a life that speaks long after you're gone. There's a moment in everyone's life, usually quiet, sometimes loud, when the question rises from deep within. Is this all there is? Maybe it comes while you're grinding away at a job you hate. Maybe it comes after you've earned a title, a salary, a few nods of recognition, but still feel empty. Maybe it shows up at 16 when you're being told what to become, or at 65 when you're looking back, wondering if what you became was ever truly you. The truth is, life was never meant to be reduced to earning a living. The real question is, are you building a life that will speak for you when you can't speak for yourself anymore? From 16 to 65, we are sold a dream that often becomes a distraction. Graduate, get a job, get promoted, buy things, secure comfort, then retire. But while you were chasing that checklist, did you ever stop to ask, what will they say about me when I'm gone? That I worked hard? Sure. That I was dependable? Good. But will they say I mattered? That I impacted? That I inspired? Because the goal isn't just survival, it's legacy. Let's start with 16. At 16, most people are told to choose a path. Pick a career, think about the future. But the pressure to pick often robs people of purpose. They're told to focus on security, not significance. So they settle for safe, they settle for common, they settle for the known. But the truth is, your job isn't your identity. You weren't born to fit into a mold, you were born to break cycles. And if no one tells you that at 16, you could waste decades thinking your paycheck defines your worth. You see, making a living is just about money, but making a life that's about meaning. And meaning isn't handed to you. It's carved out of the moments you choose intention over impulse. It's built in the times you said yes to a calling no one else could hear. Meaning is when you sacrifice applause for authenticity. It's when you'd rather be impactful than impressive. It's when you care less about the brand you wear and more about the truth you live. Making a living can buy you things, but making a life will give others something they can never buy: hope. Think about the people you admire most. The ones who left their mark. They didn't live to clock in and clock out. They didn't die with the music still in them. They took what they were given and used it to lift others. They were builders of people, of dreams, of purpose. They weren't just rich in money, they were rich in meaning. Because here's the thing, the world doesn't remember what you had, it remembers what you gave. The question isn't how much you earned, it's how much you poured. And if you're 25 right now and feel like you're just grinding to survive, remember this: your purpose isn't postponed until retirement. You don't need to wait until you've made it to start living it. Your greatest impact can begin right where you are. You might be working a job that doesn't light you up, but how you show up, how you encourage others, how you stay disciplined, that's already speaking louder than you know. Purpose doesn't need a platform, it needs obedience. And when you bring your full self to the present, you're not just making a living, you're making a legacy. At 35, the temptations change. You might be earning more, but the questions get louder. Why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? It's easy to get caught in the cycle of success and forget the substance of life. You get praised for your position, but starved for peace. The house gets bigger, but your passion gets smaller. That's when you have to choose. Will I chase titles, or will I chase truth? Will I build a resume, or will I build a reputation that outlives me? Because there's nothing wrong with wealth, nothing wrong with success. But when what you do disconnects from who you are, you become a stranger to yourself. And too many people are living someone else's dream, dying inside while they smile for the camera. They're wealthy in public and bankrupt in private. They're seen but not known, busy but not fulfilled, successful but not significant. That's what happens when you make a living and forget to make a life. The shift begins when you realize that fulfillment isn't found in more, it's found in meaning. And meaning comes when you ask deeper questions. Who did I lift? Who did I serve? Who got stronger because I didn't give up? When you think like that, everything changes. Your job becomes a tool, not a trap. Your income becomes influence. Your time becomes testimony. You start looking at every day as a chance to build something that breathes even after you stop breathing. And then there's 45, midlife. That's when most people start asking, is it too late? They think they're running out of time. But here's the truth. You're not running out of time, you're just waking up to it. Because making a life doesn't follow a clock. It follows a commitment. If you decide today to shift your focus from success to significance, you can turn the rest of your life into the best of your life. You can start writing a new story. You can stop letting your job title define your identity. You can choose purpose over pressure. And the world won't just see what you do, they'll feel who you are. Legacy doesn't start when you die, it starts when you decide to live with intention. Every word you speak, every person you mentor, every moment you choose patience over pride. Every act of kindness, even when no one's watching, that's legacy. That's a life that speaks. And when you start thinking in those terms, even the smallest things matter. A conversation, a gesture, a decision. They all become bricks in the house you're building, not for you, but for those who come after. At 55, maybe the fear is different. Maybe now it's about being forgotten, about fading away, about being replaced. But the beautiful truth is, if you've built your life on impact, you can never truly disappear, because lives touched never fade. Your wisdom outlives your age. Your example becomes someone else's guide. And long after your voice goes silent, the echo of your actions will still speak. If you've lived for something greater than yourself, then even time can't erase your contribution. And at 65, if you're lucky enough to get there, the view changes. You see the world through a different lens. You realize that the applause doesn't last, but the seeds you planted do. You recognize that people won't remember your salary, but they'll remember your sacrifice. They won't recall your awards, but they'll remember your authenticity. They won't quote your titles, but they'll quote your truth. Because the only life that lasts is the one that was given away. And that's the paradox. The more you try to keep everything for yourself, your time, your energy, your focus, the more life slips through your hands. But the more you give yourself away to something meaningful, the more life gives back. You don't find yourself by hoarding success, you find yourself by sowing significance. And when you've done that, when you've poured your soul into people, purpose, and progress, you've already won. So if you're just starting out, know this: making a living is necessary, but making a life is essential. Don't confuse the two. One ends at retirement, the other never ends. One builds comfort, the other builds character. One fills your wallet, the other fills your world. Don't let your entire existence be measured by a time card. Don't let your years be reduced to the numbers in your bank account. Make them count in people, in purpose, in power that doesn't fade. The world doesn't need more successful people who hate their lives. It needs awakened people who realize that real success is soul deep. It's rooted in who you are when no one's watching. It's built on what you give when there's nothing to gain. It's found in the people who weep when you level not because of what you had, but because of who you were. That's the life that matters. That's the voice that keeps speaking long after you've gone silent. 2, your direction is more important than your speed. In a world obsessed with hustle, with speed, with overnight success and instant results, it's easy to get caught up in the race. From a young age, we're taught that faster is better. Finish school fast, get the job fast, make money fast, build the brand, rise the ranks, crush the goals fast. But what no one tells you loud enough is this: speed without direction leads to disaster. If you're going fast but going the wrong way, all you're doing is accelerating your own downfall. Because it doesn't matter how quickly you move if you're headed nowhere meaningful. At 16, the pressure starts to build. It's in the guidance counselor's office, in the family expectations, in the college brochures, in the unspoken comparisons with your peers. What do you want to be? Where are you going? What's your plan? And if you don't have an answer, they treat you like you're behind, like you're failing, like the clock is ticking, and you're already too late. But here's what the world won't tell you: direction comes from discovery, not deadlines. At 16, your job isn't to rush into a decision. It's to explore, to observe, to uncover the threads that light your soul on fire. Because the earlier you rush into the wrong path, the longer you'll spend undoing it. There are people right now in their 30s, 40s, even 50s who have all the things the world told them to chase, and yet they're empty. They moved fast. They moved with precision. They accomplished what looked like success. But inside, they're lost. Why? Because they were moving at lightning speed toward a destination that never matched their design. They followed the blueprint without questioning the architect. They followed the crowd without checking their compass. And now they're realizing, I got everything I wanted, but not what I needed. Speed is seductive. It gives you the illusion of progress, but only direction gives you peace. You can be busy every day and still be bankrupt in your soul. You can achieve milestones that look impressive and still miss the mission you were born to fulfill. That's the danger of speed without clarity. It tricks you into thinking motion means meaning. But real growth isn't measured by how fast you move, it's measured by how true you move. Are you walking in alignment with who you are, or are you sprinting to become someone the world expects? At 25, you might feel like you're behind. Social media will do that to you. You'll scroll through highlight reels of people your age, living the dream, and wonder why you're still figuring things out. But don't confuse visibility with value. Just because someone looks successful doesn't mean they're satisfied, and just because your life is quieter doesn't mean it's less powerful. If you're moving slowly, but you're moving towards something real, you're ahead of the game. Because slow steps in the right direction will always beat fast steps in the wrong one. Every season has its own temptation. At 35, the temptation is comparison. You look left, look right, and measure your speed against others. But life is not a race, it's a route. And every route is different. One person's destination might not even be on your map. So why are you racing them? Why are you measuring your progress against someone whose path doesn't match your purpose? It's a waste of energy. And more importantly, it's a distraction from the one thing that really matters. Am I headed where I'm supposed to go? That question is powerful because it puts the focus back on you, on your gifts, your convictions, your passions. Direction comes when you slow down enough to listen not to the noise, not to the trends, but to the whisper inside that says, this is it, this is you, this is right. And you can't hear that whisper if your life is always in fifth gear. You have to pause, reflect, adjust. Sometimes the best move is not another step forward, but a turn to the side, a pivot, a course correction. Because moving slower on the right road is far more powerful than speeding down the wrong one. At 45, you may already be living out the consequences of earlier directions. Maybe you followed a path that made others proud but left you feeling unfulfilled. Maybe you moved fast to escape failure, but never slowed down to heal. Maybe you chased success without ever asking what success meant to you personally. Now, the challenge isn't just direction, it's redirection. And that takes courage. It takes humility to admit you've been going the wrong way. But even more, it takes vision to believe you can still change course. You see, age is not a barrier to redirection, it's a catalyst. The longer you live, the clearer your values become. The less tolerance you have for noise, for fake goals, for shallow wins. You start to see that some things that once seemed urgent are now irrelevant. You start to feel the pull of purpose, louder and more undeniable. And if you honor that pull, if you lean into it instead of resisting it, you can still reach your destination. Maybe not as fast as you once hoped, but with more depth, more clarity, more peace. It's better to walk with God through uncertainty than to run ahead in your own direction and arrive at emptiness. Speed is only beneficial when it's guided by wisdom. The world rewards hustle, but heaven rewards obedience. And obedience is rarely rushed. It's measured, it's intentional, it's rooted in listening and trusting that the steps of the righteous are ordered, not hurried, not scrambled, ordered. That means your timeline may not match society's, but it will always align with your assignment. At 55, you start to realize how much time you've spent proving things to people who don't even remember what you were trying to prove. You realize that all the speeding, all the rushing, all the striving, it was to impress people who were just as lost as you. That's when you find freedom. That's when you stop trying to keep up and start catching up with your own soul. You get honest. You stop pretending. You let go of the illusion that you need to be somewhere by now. And you start asking better questions. What matters now? What deserves my energy? Who do I want to become in the time I have left? That's when direction becomes everything, because time becomes precious. Energy becomes sacred. You no longer have time to chase meaningless things. You don't want to speed, you want to be still and know. You want peace. You want impact. You want authenticity. And all of that requires you to let go of the race and lean into the route. It means cutting things off, slowing things down. saying no to anything that doesn't align with your true north. And when you reach 65, something powerful happens. You begin to see your life in chapters. You look back and realize that every time you moved without direction, you paid a price. But every time you followed peace over pressure, you found purpose. The regrets weren't about how fast you moved, they were about where you went. And the victories weren't in how much you accomplished, but in how aligned you became. That's the beauty of age. It strips away the superficial and reveals what was always true. It was never about speed. It was always about substance. So if you're 16 right now and feeling behind, hear this: you are not late. You are learning. You don't need to rush. You need to align. Get still. Listen deep. Let direction come before ambition. And if you're 30 and feeling like time is slipping, remember this: you can change direction at any moment. The earlier you choose the right road, the less you'll have to recover from. And if you're 50 and wondering if it's too late, hear this: the best journeys often begin at the second start. Direction is what anchors you. It's what guides you through storms and seasons. It's what gives your pace purpose. And when your direction is rooted in conviction, no matter how slow you go, you're moving with meaning. The world can't measure that. Algorithms can't calculate that, but your soul knows. And your legacy will show it. Because at the end of your life, they won't remember how fast you went. They'll remember where you ended up and who you became along the way. 3. Wisdom is wealth, so stop wasting it on people who won't spend it. From the time you're young, you're taught that money is the most important currency. Save it, chase it, invest it. Don't waste it. Don't throw it away on things or people who won't give you a return. And that's true. But what no one tells you, what schools don't teach, what society doesn't preach, is that wisdom is a far greater currency than money. You can lose money and make it back. You can go broke and recover. But if you give your wisdom to the wrong people, if you pour your lessons into people who aren't ready or willing to grow, you've wasted something priceless. From age 16, you start gathering wisdom. Maybe not in the form of books or lectures or formal teaching, but in pain, in betrayal, in heartbreak, in moments where life teaches you what school never could. That heartbreak you thought would kill you, that taught you boundaries. That failure you felt ashamed of, that taught you resilience. That friendship that fell apart, that taught you discernment. These aren't just moments, they're investments. Life was depositing wisdom into your spirit. You didn't always recognize it, but it was happening, layer by layer, experience by experience, and now you have a treasure inside of you. But here's the catch: not everyone deserves access to your vault. There are people who don't want your wisdom. They want your validation. They don't want your guidance. They want your attention. They don't want your correction. They want your agreement. And if you're not careful, you'll spend years trying to mentor, fix, help, heal, encourage, uplift, and empower people who have no intention of listening. You'll waste your breath on people who only want your presence, see, know your perspective. And then you'll wonder why you feel drained. It's not because you're weak, it's because you're wasting wealth on people who don't respect the value of your voice. Wisdom isn't loud. It doesn't fight to be heard. It speaks and then it watches. It looks for response, not applause. It watches for fruit, not flattery. When you give someone wisdom and they ignore it, dismiss it, or constantly question it, believe them. They don't want growth, they want comfort. And your wisdom disrupts their denial, so they resist it. Or they resent you for sharing it. That's when you have to make a decision, not out of pride, but out of preservation. You can't keep giving wisdom to people who weaponize it against you. You can't keep casting what's sacred in front of people who treat it as common. At 25, you're tempted to be the fixer. You want to help everyone. You want to share every insight. You want to give every gem, especially with the people you love. But just because you love someone doesn't mean they're ready to grow. And love without boundaries turns into exhaustion. You can pour from your cup, but if someone keeps poking holes in the bottom, your effort becomes an exercise in futility. It's not noble to keep teaching someone who's committed to staying stuck. It's not admirable to keep advising someone who ignores you until they're desperate. That's not ministry, that's martyrdom. Every time you try to force someone to change, you rob them of their own encounter with life. Sometimes people don't need your voice, they need their own valley. They need to wrestle with reality. They need to feel the sting of their decisions. They need to sit in silence until their own thoughts convict them. Because real change never comes from someone else's wisdom, it comes from the moment when your own wisdom catches up with your consequences. And that doesn't happen if someone's always rescuing you. So stop rescuing people who keep running back into the fire. That's not love, that's enabling. At 35, you've collected more lessons. You've survived more storms. And now, you're starting to see patterns. You've watched people cycle through the same chaos. You've watched them ask for advice and do the opposite. And you felt the frustration of watching someone drown in water you've already learned how to swim through. But here's the truth. Not everyone wants to be saved. Some people want sympathy, not solutions. They're addicted to struggle because it gives them an identity, and your wisdom threatens that identity. That's why they resist you, not because you're wrong, but because you're right too soon. So what do? You set boundaries. You stop trying to convince. You stop preaching to people who only listen out of convenience. You conserve your energy. You start discerning the difference between who's teachable and who's just tolerating you. Because wisdom is expensive. It costs you pain, time, healing, scars, and silence. You paid for it. So stop handing it out like it's cheap. Save it for people who are ready to spend it, who are willing to wrestle with it, who value what you say not because it flatters them, but because it challenges them. At 45, the wisdom deepens. It's quieter now, less performative, more potent. You don't need to prove anything. You've lived enough to know what's real. But even in this maturity, the temptation is still there. To mentor people who mirror your younger self. To try and go back and fix people who remind you of who you used to be. That's noble but dangerous. Because some people aren't earlier versions of you. They're just people who don't want to do the work. And if you keep projecting your past onto their present, you'll waste your wisdom trying to rewrite their story in the image of yours. Let them live their own chapters. Be available, but not accessible to abuse. There's a sacredness to the wisdom you've earned. It's not for entertainment, it's for elevation. You carry words that can unlock people, but only if they're ready to walk through the door. And readiness isn't always visible. It's revealed in fruit. Watch how people respond to correction. Watch what they do with instruction. Watch how they treat you after you tell them the truth. That's the test. Not how loud they cheer when you flatter them, but how quiet they get when you correct them. If they withdraw, deflect, attack, or twist your words, stop talking. You're not obligated to keep explaining yourself to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. At 55, your wisdom becomes legacy. You begin to see how powerful your words have bikomeno because they're loud, but because they're lived. You don't just speak wisdom, you are wisdom. You embody it. It's in how you carry yourself, in how you move, in how you love, in how you lead. But even then, you must still protect it. Because even at that level, people will try to use you as a shortcut to avoid doing their own work. Don't let them. Wisdom must be earned, not inherited. And if someone isn't willing to go through the fire you went through, they shouldn't get the gold that came out of it. You can love people and still withhold your wisdom from them. Not out of spite, but out of strategy. Because some people don't grow when they're given answers, they grow when they're left with questions. Sometimes silence is more powerful than speech. Sometimes letting someone struggle is more merciful than stepping in. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every person is your assignment. And not every cry for help is sincere. Some people are just crying because life won't let them stay asleep. And if you keep rocking them back to sleep with comfort, they'll never wake up to their calling. There's a difference between giving someone wisdom and handing them responsibility. One empowers, the other enables. You empower someone when you share insight and watch what they do with it. You enable someone when you make their growth your job. That's not help, it's harm in disguise. Because you're robbing them of ownership. And when someone doesn't own their own growth, they won't protect it. They'll trample your wisdom, then blame you when it doesn't work. And that's when you realize you were never the problem. You were just giving wealth to someone who only wanted welfare. From 16 to 65, wisdom must be stewarded. Not everyone gets equal access. Not everyone gets a seat at the table. You decide who you teach, who you lead, who you pour into. Not based on popularity, but on posture. Is their posture open? Is it humble? Is it teachable? Or is it entitled, defensive, resistant, and reactive? Your legacy depends on your ability to discern the soil. Don't keep planting seeds in places that only want shade. Save your harvest for people who are ready to cultivate. Because your wisdom is wealth, and where you invest it will determine what multiplies.